Hi Delvers, welcome to another video. In this video we'll be running through the basics of querying in SQL. So now last week we did install my SQL workbench, so I'm just going to get straight into it. I'm just going to click on that, so and it loads up my SQL. So now I can remember vividly that we did create we created a database last week, and we also added the world database also. So in this video, just to do a quick recap, we're just going to create a new database again. So I'm going to click on that. It says new schema here. I'm just going to use I'm going to call that database work. Just going to apply that, apply and finish, and that's the new database, the work, which should contain nothing because we've just created it. So what I want to do quickly also is to add a table to that database. So I'm just going to right click on the database. I'm going to go straight to import wizard. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to browse. I'm going to choose that from my document. I'm going to open next. Now, so what this interface is saying, in other words, is saying you're creating a new table. You are adding that table to the database called work, and the name of the table you're adding is called work underscore from underscore anywhere. So I'm just going to click on next, and this specifies the colons. So it's just say, for example, you don't want a particular colon or something, but I want everything in that table, so I'm just going to leave it that way, and this specifies the field type. I'm just going to next on that and next. So now what it's trying to do is trying to import that data. It's a CSV file. It's trying to import that CSV file onto SQL. So I'm just going to click next. That's done. So it's saying 500 report has been imported. That's pretty much what I want. I'm just going to click on next, finish, and I'm just going to cancel this. And yeah, so if I click on that now, click on tables, now that's not showing, and that's because I've not refreshed. So I'm just going to refresh this quickly. I'm going to click on that, and there is the database that we have just added, and that's pretty much it. Now, so let's get straight into this. Now, to query, or why querying in SQL it's pretty important that we note what table or what database are we querying from. So say, for example, I'm trying to select, for example, I'm selecting everything, and I'm doing that from say I'm doing that from city. Now you can ask me where is city coming from. That's simple. When you come under the world database, under the table, there we have city, which is one of the tables in the world database. So I'm selecting everything from, so I'm going to explain all of this in the subsequent lessons, so don't worry about that. I'm just going to click on that, and it says there's an error. It says the table work.city doesn't exist, but I thought we have just seen it here that it does exist. There's actually a table called city. Now that's because I'm not selecting that table from the correct database. You understand? And we can do this, and I didn't even have this there. So for every query you need to have the semicolon at the back, but it still won't work because of the same error message that city doesn't exist, but it does exist. So now the reason why this is happening is because I'm trying to query, trying to pull off data from a table, but I'm not doing it from the right database. So what you need to do, the first thing you can do here is you can use so this I'm telling SQL to say use a particular database. Now where do we find city? City is a table that is found under the world database. So I can say use world. I can say use world, then I put a semicolon there. So I'm saying use world and then select everything from city. So if I click on that again, let's see what happens. Yeah, there it is. It comes up with the output. So that's the first way to specify the database you want to use. So you just use and add the database, then write your query. Now that's number one. Another way you can do this is to specify in the query itself. So I can say select everything from world dot city. So what I'm saying on that was is select everything from the database world and use the database city. So if I click on that now, it works. You see that? So say for example, I want to select work from anywhere, which you've just seen. So I can say, I can take that out and say select everything from work from anywhere. So if I load that up now, see, can you see it loads up that database? So that's the second way you can do it. You can put the database, a full stop, then put the name of the table. Now the third way is pretty much easy. You just need to double click the database. So for example, now you can see these two databases, work and world. You can see world is bold but work isn't. So what that means is whatever we're trying to do here, we are doing it from the world database. Say for example, we know work from anywhere is from the work database. So let me just remove this, which means I'm not specifying that database, and let's see if that works. So if I click on that, can you see it's not working? Again, it's coming up with that error message saying world. Can you see that is database world.work from anywhere doesn't exist. Why? Because work from anywhere isn't found in the world database. It is instead found in the work database. So what I can do is I can just double click on that. Can you see? Now it's bold and work. So if I rerun that, let's see, there it is. It works. So you can either use either of these methods basically to specify, because it's important, you need to specify the database you're working with first, so you reduce your chances of running into errors consistently. So now let's just come back here. So select, which is one of the most important statements that is used in SQL. Now select basically is saying is pulling off rows from a particular table. So what I'm doing here, so it's pulling off columns from a particular table. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying select. Now this star there means all, everything. So I'm saying select everything from the table called this. So he's selecting everything. Now I can also choose to select specific things. So I can say select, I don't want everything, I just want the company. I also want the location, and I want the, let's just say those are the two things I want. Or I want also the, let's just say the job title. It comes up with that. Just click enter and I run that, and you can see this time it's coming up again with an error. It's saying there's an unknown colon, and that's because of the job title colon. So I'm just gonna do something quickly. Now I mean, this is not something we should have gotten into, but it's fine. Just gonna do that quickly. I'm gonna run that. Yeah, and it runs. But I mean, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that much later. It's just the way that has been saved, and the little what's it called? The little spacing between the job and the title. That's why it's not pulling up that initially. So, but that's it. So you can see it's loaded up the company, the location, and the job title. And obviously we know that there are more things in this table, but I've just limited it to those three colons. So we select colons based on what we've specified, and it will pull off those colons in the output. Now from statement basically is saying where we are pulling the data from, the table that we are using. So for example, now, for example, we have tables here. We have city, country. Those are three different tables. So the from is, and under the work, we have one table, which is work from anywhere. So from is specifying, or is telling SQL where we are pulling the data that we want what we are pulling it from. That's basically it. So that's from, select, and let's just add one more, which is the where. Now, the where statement is filtering rows based on a specified value. Say, for example, I'm just going to run this quickly and say I'm selecting everything. Now that this won't work because I've not added anything under the where, so I'm just going to take it out. Just selecting everything, then loads up everything, and say I just want guys that work remotely. So I'm just going to say where. So this, I'm specifying. There are a lot of rows here. That's one very important thing you need to know as a data analyst is the difference between a row and a column. So a column is this, and a row is this. So a row is horizontal and a column is vertical, basically. So say I'm selecting, I want rows that have remote jobs, basically, because I'm interested in working remotely, so I don't want to work on site. Yeah, so I'm just gonna copy that quickly, copy the field name, put it there, and I'm gonna say where the work flexibility is equal to remote, and that won't run, obviously, and that's because of the gap there again. So I'm just gonna do that. Just gonna say where the work here is, to run. So, and it comes up with because it doesn't have that. So I'm just gonna do this quickly because it's a string. I'm just gonna run through all of these details much later. So I'm gonna run through everything much later, but not now. I'm just gonna say that, and there it is. So it's pulling off every job that has remote only as the flexibility, because that's what I'm interested in. So what it's doing now is filtering the rows. You understand? That's the where statement. So say, for example, I have two different queries here. So let me say I have this query there, and I have another query called select. And this time I'm using the city now. So I'm just going to say select everything from, but obviously I know I'm currently on the work data, on the work database. I'm going to specify the database I want to select from. So I'm just going to put world, which is the database. I'm going to say foot, stop, and city. So I'll specify the database I wanted to pull everything from, and I'm going to use that. So if I select that, can you see it comes up with the result. However, we have two different queries here. Now this is one and this is two different queries. Now the first query, but when I clicked on that, it only ran the first query and not the second query, and that's because I've explained that to you before. I've said these two light bulbs they work differently. Now this first one runs queries. It runs this query and then it runs this query, but the light bulb with the colon only runs the query where the colon is. So say, for example, that's where the colon is, that is within this query. If I click on that, it runs just that query. But say I click on that, it runs both queries. Can you see it runs the city query first, then it runs the work from anywhere query, if that makes sense. So basically that's just some basics when it comes to querying, some basic syntax. In the next lesson, we'll be diving more into each of those statements. So the next lesson will be going into the select statement, and we'll dive a bit more into that. I believe you've learned something from this lesson, so just stay tuned. As I always say, like and subscribe so you are aware once we drop a new tutorial video. So on this note, I will say peace out. I'll see you in the next lesson. Take care. Bye.